And how do you think you've changed the way they approach poetry?
I don't know about our influence. I would like to say it's good.
The Screen Bloomer Cultural Centre is yet to be opened.
Not quite sure.
Well, I mean, I suppose it's all positive, but you see a lot of things that you don't necessarily like. But that helps you to make sure that you don't make the same, what you see as mistakes yourself. I don't know, you can't really pick a place that has influences more than any other. I think it's the accumulation of everything is what the overall influence comes from, and it's continual, you know, as we travel.
Well, I can pick a place that had a huge influence on me, which was the Queensland Poetry Festival 2 years ago, where we saw an American woman called Emily XYZ, who does joint poems. And for me personally, Aisling and I had already kind of been working towards doing some things together, but the way that she did her poetry was very much intertwined, very much like a song more than a poem. It was musical in a sense of rhythmical, and so from that I went and wrote a few of my own, and then just thought about. So for me, it kind of moved me like a quantum leap forward in terms of, you know, blending more than one voice.
One last question for you guys. What next? What are you guys planning for the next 5 years, maybe 2 years, however long you guys plan your lives out?
We tend to plan about 2 weeks.
I think I have said I would like to do more tours in hot places, because I only get 2 months off, and if I'm going to travel, I don't want to go anywhere cold, because Ireland is cold. But that's strictly shallow.
When we get back, I mean, we've got this tour, which is quite the New Zealand part of it is quite extensive. I mean, I think we've got over 20 dates
25
in 3 weeks. Quite a heavy schedule. After that, we get back. We've got we've actually just started to get a little bit of notice taken of us, a bit more than we would have in the last year or two. So you were asking a little bit earlier about impact. I'm not exactly sure how much impact we have. Poetry is still quite a small art form. Still, and it's not. We're not talking about huge crowds of people that come to see poets. There are places in the world that does happen, but not where we are. But when we get back, we've got 2 festivals. The Trans 08, which is an urban arts festival, which we've been asked to do a part of our show at, which is very, very good. We're also going to the Electric Picnic Festival, which is a big sort of music festival, but also a spoken word. Now we're going to that, which I'm looking forward to. And then after that, we've got some local sort of anti-racism things that we're doing in conjunction with local councils. You asked about an impact. We do have little. I mean, you know, within reason, you make an impact. You try and use what you do to sort of celebrate diversity and encourage people to look at the world as a much more open place rather than a sort of monocultural place. I think that's one of the things, if anything, that our poetry does. It makes an argument, I suppose, that multicultural societies are the way forward, and multicultural sort of methods of linking art together is much more beneficial to people than monocultural and sort of stagnating type of things where you don't get to have varied experiences. And one of the things about where we live in Northern Ireland has been for too long, because there were the troubles and the war that was there, it was difficult for people to have those experiences. Now through the peace it is much easier. More people are coming there. We had to travel initially to get those experiences, but now we can actually meet poets from a Muslim background in Northern Ireland. Now you can do that. You can meet African poets. We've done some work with an African poet in Northern Ireland. We wouldn't have had those experiences a few years ago when it was less likely that people would come. Having said that, I mean, the travelling side of it is one of the most rewarding parts of it. I certainly find it that way, and I think it does influence us greatly.
I'd like to actually slip in one more question. You guys write collectively, right? You guys write your pieces together? Or do you guys do individual work and put it together? What's your process like for a show?
Like, somebody will have an idea for the show. Like, the show that we're turning to minute is based on the events, the worldwide events that happened in 1968. It was a tumultuous year of change and ideas of revolution and people being able to change their situations for the better and fight the power. So we kind of tried to do our own research on aspects of the events that interested us, write the poems, and then just come together and see, you know, of the 10 things I have, maybe 6 are good and maybe 4 of them fit well with some things that everybody else has written. It's really like we write our own little pieces and then, you know, try to slot them together like a jigsaw to create the show. We haven't actually written anything collectively.
No.
We tried once.
But we work collectively. The process of a show is actually quite a cathartic process. We have to discuss and we have to work out what fits, what doesn't fit, with your voice here. How do the next voice come in?
It's quite complicated because there's 5 of us, we have 5 different accents and 5 different styles of writing, and so trying to fit them in so that they run smoothly together takes a bit of time and takes a bit of shifting things around. So when somebody comes to listen to the show, they're getting assaulted by our different accents, but they're not going, oh my god, that's so painful, why is that there? Hopefully they'll enjoy the experience that we've put together, the highs and the lows of it, but it takes a bit of shifting to get it into place, I think.
I mean, we had a good compliment last night. Someone who saw us last year said, oh, it's much more an ensemble work. Last year, it as good as it was, they said, it appeared as if there were 3 solo acts joined together. There was 3 of us last year that came. The 5 of us this year, he was saying, is much more like an ensemble piece. You can sort of see it, it's much more seamless.
And that brings us to the end of this edition of WriterSpeak. On our next show, we'll have with us Mark Daniel Nair, a Singaporean poet. Mark is an accomplished slam poet, a performance poet, and he's also recently published his first book. It's called Along the Yellow Line. So do join us again. I'm Bhaskar, and you've been listening to WriterSpeak, brought to you by writersconnect.org. Thank you for listening.